Our next one.
Before there were stars.
So this is almost all of the games that I've done for Smirk and Laughter. Not only were extremely interesting in that they allowed me to do things that I had never done in board gaming before because I was so focused on backstabbing. I kept on, each time I came out with a new title, I kept on reinventing what Smirk and Laughter was actually going to be, what it would stand for. You know, when I came out with Nuts So Fast, I was thinking, oh, it's going to be like a family party line. But then I saw Koi and Before There Were Stars, and it kept on transmuting, and, you know, before it just was like, you know, well, no, it's just going to be emotional gameplay. Anything that kind of connects with you on a deeper level. And Before There Were Stars was the one that really changed a lot of the vision for what I was going to be doing. This is a game by Alex Cutler, Matt Fantastic, and Alex Wilkerson. It's a game that imagines that you're an ancient lore giver of your people. And each of you represents essentially like a different culture who looks up into the heavens and becomes inspired with creation stories. So you've got a hand of 12 dice that all have these little star pips on them. And you roll the night sky. Then you scan the heavens and you look for constellations that you might see that night. And there's a row of 5 cards that has constellations like the Blizzard, Death, the Sword, and all of them have these little, you know, star-pipped dice that kind of map out the constellation image. You know, just like you're used to, like, you know, drawing little lines between the stars. Well, yeah. Same thing, but the star pips kind of do that. So those have become keywords or concepts in your story. So if I, you know, roll a 3, a 6, and a 3, I can bring the owl into my story, for example. And after drafting 2 cards, everyone goes around and does that. You then tell a creation myth, and round 1 is, in the beginning, how did the owl and lightning somehow come together to explain all we know and see in the universe? You've got about a minute to tell the tale of how the world began with those 2 elements. And it's a story crafting game. You're telling these great imaginative stories. You've got these kind of, you know, guideline safety nets that make it kind of easy. Even if you're not, like, you know, a super comfortable storyteller, you can effectively, you know, tell about a minute tale. And some people go for drama, and some people go for humor, and some, you know, like, it goes all over the map. But interestingly, this is a game that, while there is scoring, this is not one of those games where, like, the funniest joke wins.
Right.
Or the best orator wins because they're a gifted storyteller. This is a game that scores secretly between the rounds by passing an offering bag, and you drop a little star gem of a certain color in their bag to reward them for what they did. And what you're actually rewarding is who had the coolest moment in their story. And anyone can have a great moment. That could be defined however you see it. But very often, even times like, you know, if let's say, you know, round 1, and you're telling your, you know, you're telling your story about, you know, how in the beginning. Now, chapter 2, you got the dawn of civilization. How did we as a people get here? And you tell that story. Then chapter 3, a great hero emerges. And each time you're getting 2 new cards from the center of the table. And then chapter 4, it's the end of days. How is the world going to all wrap up? Is it going to be doom and gloom? Is it going to be hopeful? You decide. Well, let's say, as a little, you know, I wasn't really sure. I'm not a great storyteller. My chapter 1 was a little rocky as I was trying to figure out what I'm doing. Chapter 3, a great hero emerges. All of a sudden, you pulled threads of your story in a really cool way that you're like, oh my god, you just pulled in that beginning and made it all work. Well, you're going to get score high this round because you you really surprised us with a great twist, or someone just, someone who sometimes gets rewarded because what they said was like poetry, or it had, an emotionality, or however. But in the end, the points don't really matter. They are a way to help guide the game. The best part of the game actually is the last point of the game is given after all the story's been told. You're going to give 1 bonus point to your favorite moment of the game after you highlight 2 other things. So, for example, Daniel, when you told the story about the goddess who wept and it filled the oceans, and I loved that. That was beautiful. But other Daniel, when you told the story about the 2 warring giants who fought over the one eyeball, and one could look in the past with it, and the other one could look in the future, that was so cool. Bonus point for you, my friend. What you end up doing is you see, first of all, that everyone gets recognized for something creative they did in their tale. So regardless of the points in the bag, you walk away feeling like, I wasn't even sure I was going to like this, but this was cool.
Yeah.
And there's this heartwarming feeling where people are recognizing each other for creativity that just powers this game. Interestingly, I thought this game was going to be about like couples hanging out, having some wine, telling stories, but where it really took off was in a family setting, because no matter who sits down to play this game, it automatically, without changing a rule, without explaining it differently, it adjusts to whoever sits down.
Yeah. And
therefore, anyone can play it. And the stories just become more kid-like stories. But they just, it's just really cool. In fact, we ended up creating Common Core lesson plans for both social studies and English because teachers wanted to bring it into the classroom. So it's really cool.
Yeah, no, this kind of, I'm not a huge fan of storytelling games, but this kind of gets me involved in it because it brings in mythology, I guess you can say, and that's something that I've always been enthralled with.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and second that. I loathe storytelling games. I've never had fun playing them until the point I played this. And I was still skeptical going into it, and because I hated storytelling games. This is the only storytelling game in my collection, and I'm gonna keep it because this really did make it enjoyable. Whether I'm good at storytelling or not, this was just a great experience, which I think was kind of the goal with it. How did you find this game? Was it pitched to you?
It was. It was pitched to me, and I also love mythology. So when they pitched it, I was like, oh my god. I mean, if the gameplay is half as good as the setup, I love it already. And I had to convince myself, I had to change my Smirk and Laughter brand vision
to justify
to
it.
accept it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can't help but think that were the people who pitched it to you, the designer of it, was he your friend, or did he not know what you've made before? Or that sounds rude at first, but you know what I mean. I do. Because this definitely isn't a Smirk and Dagger style game.
Yeah, so one of the designers I did know, the other 2 I did not, and they were aware that I had created a new brand in Smirk and Laughter, but it was still ill-defined, and so they were pitching me a bunch of stuff, and they were like, well, I don't know if this is right, but what do you think about this? And I was like, well, let's try it, because I wasn't sure if I was going to like a storytelling game. I certainly hate the judging of most storytelling games.
Right.
Yes.
One of my biggest pet peeves for a lot of storytelling games is I want to tell a story, and a lot of storytelling games are it's like the other player throws a wrench into your story, or they they take it off into a completely different thing. It's like, well, I don't get the enjoyment of telling my story because I can't control my story.
Right.
And this game, it doesn't suffer from that, and that's what mechanically what I loved. And what I saw happening, the only mechanic I really added to it was that final point, because I wanted something that was going to firmly establish what I saw happening at the table already. at the end of the game, people would start talking about what things they loved about each other's stories. And it didn't get talked about earlier because scoring is secret, which I also really appreciated.
Yes.
So I wanted that last bonus point to reinforce and make it part of the game that you have to like talk about everyone's stories at the end and give them props for cool things they did. But I think it was that small addition that makes a huge difference in the game, in terms of how people receive it. So, yeah.
No, this is a beautiful game. Yeah. I'm glad it's selling well for you, which I believe it is.
And quite honestly, we are actually. It was going to be this year. It's now probably going to be next year. We've got another game called Of Gods and Mortals. It is a very different game, but it is also a story crafting and world building game.
Oh wow!
This one it's still in a mythological center, but now it's truly a collaborative. It's one story that we're telling, and we are all the chief orators of a particular god in the cosmos.
Okay.
And we are building a pantheon of gods, with which each person that joins playing the game. So, and each player has a role in the game. So the first role is you are going to set the context of our universe, which can either be a creation story or just the context of what's happening now. But in doing so, you're going to introduce your god and your powers, like how you interact with the world, and then someone else will then pick it up from where you left off and add their unique perspective. So it's a yes and or a yes although, what you may not know.
Okay.
So you don't take away anything that came before, but you can have a different perspective.
That's cool.
That's
so
cool.
That's a very improv-based technique there. I like that.
It is, and so it's a 3-round game, and after that first round, there is scoring. Now, this one though is different. You can imagine yourself as a human in this world. Whose altar are you going to stop at? Well, I definitely want to stop at the vengeance altar, because the story they were telling, I want to be on the right side of that. Or you could say, oh, you know what? But like when your story was like poetry, I just love that. You can give your points for any reason, but it's not about how you win or lose the game. At the very end of the game, whoever has the most followers or points ends up being able to finish the story.
Oh, that's a neat reward. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So round 1 is kind of just setting up the world and everyone's place in it. Round 2, you're going to introduce some of the demigods, because if there's always twice the number of gods randomly put on the table than there are players, and so half of the gods are like secondary gods. And then there's all of a sudden there's an inciting incident, and the role of round 2, the player picks up, it's like, oh, okay, I have the inciting incident, so given the context we just talked about, I'm now going to set up the thing that every god must react to in some way, because it's so shaken our world. Wow. And they've got if they can either come up with it themselves, or they can use these inspiration cards, and it might say, a minor god dies, or it might say, humanity misbehaves, like whatever it is. And then everyone takes it in turn to react to whatever happened. Then in round 3, the next player picks up their role, and they're like, oh, I've got the twist. So then wherever it's going, it's now going to be slight tangent.
That's cool.
And that round has to build. Everyone has to build to a climax. So the last player in that round is leaving the big cliffhanger. And then whoever has the most points gets to tell us how it all resolves. And what's great about that mechanic is, typically if you've gotten a lot of points, it's because you've created a lot of moments that become memorable in the story, and therefore it almost feels like you should cap off the story.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I can't wait for that. I'm, of course, going into it skeptical because I generally dislike that. But considering you are developing it, I'm 100%. This will be one that I will try. No argument.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's interesting, when people get up away from the table, they're like, "Oh my god, I want to go create a campaign with this as the universe that we're going to be role playing in."
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well then, so you haven't told anybody else about that yet, really, huh?
There are a few people who have heard about it or play tested that kind of thing, but no, yeah, that's fairly new news. Yeah.
All right. Well, then you heard it here first, or not first, but you heard it here on Everyday Board Games. All right, let's jump to the next one.
And I'll go ahead and take this because the one after is one of your favorites. So
yes.
So this one is We Need to Talk. Can you describe this for us?
Yeah, real briefly, We Need to Talk is a party game where you are the center of an intervention about a nonsensical, ridiculous problem. So, for example, if you are going to be the intervened this round, you draw a card off the stack of like 300 different problems that you might have, and you hold it up. You can't see it, but everyone else knows that this is your problem that they need to talk to you about. And it might say something like, carelessly runs with scissors. Or it might say, believes they speak fluent dog. The neurotic inability to turn left. all these very bizarre things, and then it becomes a game of clue giving where you're trying to subtly let them understand what their problem is, but it's a sensitive subject. You don't want to just give it away. You hope that someone actually else really spills the beans. So you're hinting around it, hoping that they guess on someone else's turn, because every time you give a clue, you're going to get points from them. And if it's such a juicy, tantalizing clue that it makes them guess, is my problem that I'm just doing a lot of like really dangerous things? You're like, and you've got like this little thing that you can, it's a sliding scale. You can kind of say, well, hot, cold kind of thing to kind of guide them. But they guessed, and because they guessed, you get more points. But if they actually guess, wait a second, do I run with scissors? You're like, you lose your points, and everyone else keeps theirs. So I want you to guess. I want to set you up so like I've given you just about information, and now they're going to give you too much, and they're going to lose their points.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's We Need to Talk. It's actually quite a fun game. The fun of it is not necessarily being the person who's trying to guess and doing it correctly. The fun is watching them struggle to understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah, we had like the little mini demo first, where it was just like a few cards. I think it was 6 cards. The very small demo pack that oh man, that went, just those 6 cards alone went over really well. Everybody, it was almost an instant sell. So that's We Need to Talk. So I'm going to jump straight into probably, I like a lot of your games, but this is probably my favorite. Shobu.
Yup.
Yeah, me and my friend Jim, who you had the honor of meeting this year at Origins, or this previous year at Origins, he's a huge fan of chess, and I'm less of a fan of chess, but I love abstract strategies, and this hit on every cylinder for us. This was phenomenal. This was one of the best. I think this is probably our best game that we sat down and played during the Origins Game Fair, like as a booth demo. This was so much. My friend doesn't buy games. He bought this straight out from you.
Yeah. This is, first of all, I absolutely agree with you. This was another one of those games where I saw it at a design fair. It was up at Toronto's design fair. And I walked by the table. It looked stunning on the table. I talked to the designers, Manolis and Jamie, and I played it, and I was like, oh my God, I love this game. It's simple, it's understated, it is way deeper than you know. It's got a great learning curve where it's not intimidating to learn like chess, but halfway through it becomes very chess-like.
Yeah.
And like it's got every single thing is firing for this game. There is no way I can justify bringing this game into my line. And they could see my face contorting as I was like trying to like figure out why would it even fit in what I do? Why would people who know my games like, of course this makes sense from you. It doesn't. And then I brought people from my team over. I was like, okay, tell me why I can't have a pretty thing. And so finally at the end of the show, and obviously, yeah, it's an abstract. It looks like a game that was discovered, unearthed, not created. But they did an amazing design job on this, and it was, from a design point of view, it was perfect in prototype.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to describe this game, it, even though it's relatively recent, it kind of looks like that chess, the ancient games Go and stuff like that. It's something that was played in the 1900s and stuff like that.
Yeah, it looks that way. It feels that way when you play it.
Mm-hmm.
It delivers on all the cylinders that just scream classic game.
Yeah.
And it's a hell of a thing to be able to innovate in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But they created a really amazing mechanic with essentially like a mirroring move. Every time you take a turn, you're actually moving twice. One is a setup move, and then the matching move you take second is the aggressive move where you can actually shove a stone off of the board, and you win by clearing one of the 4 boards of all your opponent's stones. And it's the interaction, it's the 3D spatial puzzle between balancing one board over another, or having to rebalance boards because you played too aggressively on one board, that creates all this machination in your brain that delivers the real juice of a game. But it starts as simple as checkers. Yeah. So it's a stunning feat that they pulled off, and I can't say enough great things about them as designers or this game in particular.
Yeah, one of the quote that I heard about this that I think says it all is, how was this not a game yet? Like, how did somebody not make this already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. All right, so that got my smiles going because I adore this game.
So
the only thing that I contributed to this game was I changed its name.
What was the original name, or are you allowed to say?
Yeah. Their original vision of the game, and one of the reasons why there's a rope there thematically, is that it was called Sumo Stones.
Okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You're shoving stones off of the mats. The rope is kind of evocative of that same kind of sumo stadium.
Yeah.
So it made so much sense for the game they designed. But in this case, this is the one time where I felt like the game's thematic was hindering it.
Okay.
The feeling of this game is classic game. It's the feeling of unearthing an archaeological find and dusting it off and finding the rules. So it needed a name that honored that spirit. So so I renamed it Shobu. Shobu is made up of 2 kanji. The word itself means a game, match, or a bout. So it still was in that Sumo Stones kind of feel, but the 2 kanji that make up the word Shobu are victory and defeat.
Okay.
You cannot get more black, white, zen matching to the theme than that, and I was just like, oh my god, that's it. That's this game's name.
Well, I understand that because it invokes games like Go and Shogi, which are along those ancient lines. So I get that.
Huh. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, now we're going into the future.
All right,
into the future.
So we're getting close to the end of it. So the next one we're going to be talking about is something that I'm actually interested. He described it to me as well as Josh here did describe it to me as well. Is Cinder?
Yes, indeed. So Cinder is an interesting game. It's a takeoff on Tinder. It's a little bit of a poke at modern gaming, but done in a very gamerly way. You are an adventurous character, a barbarian, a Medusa, vampire, what have you, and you have decided you'd like to get involved in the exciting scene of dating dragons, but you don't want to get burned in the process. This is a push your luck dice game developed by Harold Michaelitis and Benjamin Walker. It is a delightful romp. It's super just dice fest, roll and push your luck to gain points and try not to bust. With a whole bunch of kind of mitigating factors. There's card play and other things, but the thrust of the game though is that you got this stack of tarot-sized dragon profile cards because it's the Cinder app. So each card is like one of the pages on Cinder. And so you say, well, it's got a picture of the dragon and the dragon's name and then a little bio that they've written about themselves. So, for example, live fast, burn bright. That's my motto. If that sounds like your scene, then hit me up and we'll start some fires. Now, if you're like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure if that sounds like a dragon I'd be into, you swipe left and you can move on and take a look at the next dragon. Or you can say, you know what? Oh my God, Spitfire sounds like a real match for me. I'm going to swipe right. And as soon as you do, you flip over the card and it's got a compatibility matcher chart. So beginning the game, you've already chosen to represent yourself on Cinder by choosing a profile pick. And there's like a whole mess of them. So you can be a half orc, you can be an ogre, you can be a rogue, whatever you want to be. And then you write, with dry erase marker, you give yourself a name, identify yourself with a pronoun, a like and a dislike, all just thematic fun, really, though surprisingly people end up slightly role-playing that a little bit. But on the other side, there's like a compatibility chart. So, for example, as it relates to treasure, would you say you're more of a hoarder, an investor, or a spender?
Investor?
Investor. So you'd circle that on your card, and then you've got all these different attributes. So, the kind of type of climate that you like. Are you, a very social person or more of a hibernating person? All of those kind of things get placed on this card.
I need this game in my life.
Yeah. So then when the dragon flips over, you end up matching your traits against theirs. And the closer you are, you get odds on your dice that are better.
Okay.
So, for example, if you match on lifestyle, you're going to get a green die, and that's got 4 heart results and only 2 fire results. And fire's bad. You don't want fire.
Yeah.
Or if you're like 1 away, because it's a range of 3 attributes, and if you're like 1 away, then you get a 50-50 blue die.
Okay.
If you're 2 away, polar opposites, then you get a red die, which is 4 fire to 2 hearts.
Oh,
so then you pick a card because the dragon said, "Hey, why don't we go out to Volcanic, the dance club?" And so you check your Whelp app, and you get a review on that place. And then it'll modify your dice pool potentially, and it'll give you like a little bonus potentially that you can roll for. So now you've got up to 3 rolls as you go on your date. It's going to start with the meetup. That's your first roll. If that goes well, you can kind of bank that you scored, and now you can push your luck. You can take it to the next step. And if that goes well, potentially you can take it to the next level. And the location will tell you, like, what those things are. So at the dance club, you know, it might start with drinks, and then you're going to have, you know, you go dancing, and then you can do even more dancing. And some are like, you know, more wink and a nudge as well. You know, it'll be breakfast or you know, whatever else. Right. So in any case, now if you ever roll over the course of your 3 rolls, 3 fire, then the date has ended poorly. You have been burned, and the dragon goes back to the dating pool. If things go well, you can bank your points and stop at any time. Or if you get through all 3 rounds, you've ended up with a whole bunch of points, and you know, you add them to your card. Of course, if you do really badly and you do get burned, you might earn a second chance card. Depending on how badly you get burned, you get the modifier to your next roll is going to even be better than if you got burned like a little bit. So, in any case, it's a lark, and what you see happen is, you know, when, like I said, people are not really role playing. It's just a dice game. But if I, like, you know, I've got a dragon that's really compatible with me, I've got almost all green dice, and I roll all fire, no one says, "Oh, what a poor roll." You're like, "Dude, what did you say?" And you're like, "I don't know. We were at the dance club. I kept on stepping on her toes." And the other thing that is really great, and it was part of Harold and Ben's first idea for the game. First, the dragons are gender fluid. Mm-hmm. So some may look more masculine, some might look feminine, but each of them have traits of both along a certain spectrum. And you will see one player refer to the same dragon with a different pronoun as they go to date them, and without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
it dies.
That's fantastic.
Which is great.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, you know, it's a dating game, and, you know, people date in a lot of whole different ways. They wanted to make sure that in their dating game, there were multiple paths to victory. And it's not like nothing in the rules preaches this or describes it in any way. But, yeah, if you want to find the one perfect match, you know, for true love, you can win that way. If you just want to, like, date around a little bit and just constantly date new dragons, you can win that way. If you want to create a group of dragons that you just have, like, they have all synergies as they date in your pool, that works too.
Yeah.
So it's really neat. And as people play, I've had people like, "Oh, wait a minute, like, I can date the way I want to date." It's like, yup. It's like, oh.
So is this out yet, or is it coming out this year?
So this was our very first, after 17 years, our first Kickstarter. It funded in February, and it is on press right now. We hope to have this in the stores for September.
Great.
I'm gonna have to pick myself up this game.
Yeah, we'll order it for our store for sure. Which leads me to my next question, and which will also lead into the next and last project that we're going to be talking about today, is what made the decision to jump to Kickstarter?
Absolute necessity. I avoided Kickstarter for a long time, and certainly I've seen the benefits. Like I said, if I could have started with Kickstarter instead of putting my house on mortgage, I would have done it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But by the time Kickstarter happened, I was already making money from my games. I could afford to pay for my own games, and so at first I was like, well, it seems disingenuous. Right. Then retailers really, felt like it was encroaching on our partnership, so I didn't want to upset my retailers.
Right.
And then the world has kind of evolved, and even retailers now with retailer pledges get involved, and so a lot of that stigma has gone away. Certainly it has become a huge marketing platform, probably the best marketing platform for games that exists right now. but I still dragged my feet because it was so much work, and I'm still basically a one-man company. But last year, there were changes that were made in distribution, and as a result, I had a very rough year because none of my games were hitting distribution in any quantity. The system was so choked out. It was relying on retailers doing pre-orders, and retailers have never felt like they had to do pre-orders of my games. So because it actually disadvantages them by having to order early. And they only do so if they're like, oh, we're never going to get the game if I don't put my order in now. But that's never been the case with my games. So therefore, they didn't place pre-orders. Therefore, distributors didn't stock them. Therefore, I had new games launching, and no one could find them.
Wow.
So I almost went out of business last year.
Ooh. Oh, no.
Yep. When I discovered it, it was a little bit more than halfway through the year. And I was taking a major hit. And so I quickly made changes in how I went through distribution. I worked with some partners to open the pipeline again. So I kind of had solved that for the very beginning of this year. But I knew that in order to get back to a solid footing, I had no choice but to kickstart.
Wow.
Now, that said, it also opened my eyes to how important I think Kickstarter really is right now in the gaming industry.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be something that I continue to do. Not every game, but I think there are certain games that just make sense in that venue.
Right.
Like the Deadlies. I wouldn't have kickstarted the Deadlies. In fact, and I didn't. I paid for that one. But a game like Cinder, there was something in the gestalt of that game, in the ether of like it seemed like something that when you hear it, like, oh my god, tell me more.
Yeah.
It's something that I thought would actually get energized by the community, and that is also true of the next game that we have coming out, which is going to be kickstarting on the 16th. So next week, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Next
week
Tuesday.
from tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, so then let's jump headfirst into it. Now, I'll be honest, I have not heard any... I mean, I've heard about it, right? But as soon as I heard that you announced it and I invited you to join us, I was like, all right, great, now I get to research. And then I stopped myself. I'm like, no, I'm not going to research this. I want to know... all I've seen is some of the board, an image of some of the board, and the cover and the name. I know nothing else. Enlighten us.
By the way, that cover is awesome.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
So first, I'm going to send out some props. The designer on this game, there are three of them: Christopher Ryan, Chris McMahon, and Roswell Sanders. The three of them work in Manhattan at an advertising agency, and they have big clients like I used to have for a lot of my marketing stuff. They work with Snickers, and they work with all kinds of stuff. So.
Wow.
They know what they are doing in terms of marketing and generating excitement, creating a brand, and they did a hell of a job in the design of this game with some really interesting mechanics. It's called The Night Cage. The illustrations, by the way, are done by Chris Chan. And he's one of the designers, and he's done all the illustrations. It's an amazing looking game. The cover is very illustrative. It's very painterly. The components are almost like using a stipple brush it's got graininess to it because and it's very stark black and white. And this is because this game, when you start the game, you awake in the dark. Your skin is ice cold. Your mind is a complete blank. You don't even know who you are. And you are in this very, very confined cavern, tunnels. You've got nothing but your fear and a flickering candle and a question. How long will your light last? So you are trapped and crawling your way through this pitch black labyrinth equipped with nothing but a dim candle. You've got to work together to explore the maze and escape. And yes, this is a fully co-op game.
Wow.
Which is a very different space for me. And I'll talk to you in a bit about like what it took for me to get over that hurdle as well. But this is a horror-themed tile placement game that traps 1 to 5 lost souls in an unnatural labyrinth of eternal darkness. To win, all the players have to collect a key from somewhere in this maze. Then, even though you can only crawl around on your belly, you eventually all have to find a gate, and that's the only place where you can assemble as a group, turn your keys, and get out. But of course, there are sillies in here with you. So, the Wax Eaters are monsters that detest the light and strike out anytime they see movement along their path. And it's got this amazing candlelight mechanic. So, it only allows you to light your immediate surroundings. So, the space you're in and the pathways that exit off of your labyrinth tile, you can see one space away from you in any direction that your pathway leads. Everything else is just blank board. As you move forward, you'll start lighting new paths on the new passageways, drawing tiles, revealing them, seeing what they are, and then placing and orienting them, creating the maze. Anything that you left behind that is no longer within your candlelight not just turns dark, goes away forever, is discarded. So that means if you retrace your steps, the maze is completely different all again.
Oh, man.
The board wraps on itself, so you can never leave the maze in that way. And sometimes pits will form. And when you fall through a pit, the same kind of looping happens, where you fall down and through, and then you end up next turn dropping back onto the maze into a random tile that you draw. Hoping that it's not a monster.
Right.
Yeah. It is very thematic. It's got this great creepy feel as you don't know what you're going to be encountering. You know the monsters are out there, and when the monsters strike, they simply the reason they're called Wax Eaters is you have to discard 3 tiles out of your communal stack of wax, and you might have just discarded a gate or a key or something else that you really need, and if you discard too many gates or too many keys, you're never getting out of here. And if you run out of wax before you can all get your keys and get together on a single gate, you become lost in the darkness forever. So it's got this great tension throughout the game.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
It sounds like one of the most intense games I've ever heard of.
I'm a big fan of horror myself, so this is right up my wheelhouse, and I've told Danny this before. I want more horror games, and here we go.
Yeah. Now, when you play the game, it's not like, when I say horror game, this is not a something leaps out at you with an axe kind of a game.
Yeah.
This is about the dread of what comes next and the tension of that, and you really have to work together. It's interesting. You get to decide where your path is, how close and how far away you are from the other players. But the closer you are, you can conserve the tiles that you play because you help light each other's way. But you also, when monsters show up, it's harder for you to avoid them because multiple players could get hit with one player moving.
Oh wow!
So it's a delicate balance on how far apart you want to be, and towards the end of the game, if you're too far apart and you run out of tiles, you're stranded. You can't get to where they all are waiting for you.
Jeez. Oh.
That's I don't know. I'm nervous just thinking about that, to be honest with you. So you said that you wanted to talk about how difficult it was making the choice to publish a cooperative game.
Yes, and that's because obviously my whole life creating games is the antithesis of that. And also because most cooperative games have some attributes that make me not like them. The biggest issue I have with most cooperative games is how susceptible they are to quarterbacking.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if there is an alpha game at the table and there is an absolute visible way that you can map out what the best move is, they can't resist but to play for you.
Right.
And I don't think that's fun for anybody except the one player. So, so this game is less susceptible to that, and that's because you end up talking, a lot about, oh wait, should you put it over here or should you put the tile over here? Because, you can strategize, but the random effect of the tile when you're not sure what it's going to be, it means that there's no perfect math. And so you can talk about the odds of, well, you just picked your first out of two tiles. Should you put it here or here? Because if the next one is a monster, you have to put it there. You better hedge your bet. Have those discussions, but you know what? You have no idea what it's going to be. And therefore there's no perfect solution. And that way people actually collaborate and discuss without someone saying, here's what you need to do.
Right. And that's an important distinction. That's the reason a lot of people don't like cooperative games, is because it's like, well, if you're going to be playing it all for us, then why are we here? Yeah. Why are we here? Yeah. And our friend Ep.4, Joshua from Level 99, he said, Curt, you're really speaking my language. Tile placement, psychological horror, co-op without quarterbacking, big hype for this.
Yeah. In fact, there have been a lot of people who got really excited. And by the way, this game has won several design awards already.
Wow.
Because the designers took it to a whole bunch of design competitions, included Ion Awards, PAX South, and they either placed or won many or all of the things they entered. They got some kind of recognition, so it's really cool. Yeah. Even Jonathan Gilmour got on and said, "Oh my God, this game is fantastic." So it's getting some really nice praise. It deserves it. It's a really fun game. Since they brought it to me, the past 6-8 months, we've been workshopping it a lot. We've added more to it. I've helped develop just a little bit on it, bringing out some things that had been mechanics that I thought more could be done with. For example, one of the things in the game is it's called nerve. You earn them by staying in place rather than moving. Originally, nerve was just like you get an extra move, which could really help you in the end game, or in a critical thing where I have to get to that key before you can no longer illuminate it for me and it disappears. Right. Those are good uses of that, but they're very conditional. And I wanted a richer menu of things that you could do with nerve. So we worked together on what those things were going to be. The other thing is we've been working on some other things, advanced monsters, a fifth player, all of which I think are going to end up being stretch goal additions to the game. Assuming everything goes well next week, and I assume it will, because I think when people see it and start playing it, they're going to get very excited about it. By the way, we have 48 different opportunities at Origins Online for you to come and play with either me or the designers.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, so sign up for one of our events, try it out, and if you love it, then go right over to Kickstarter, because it'll be live at that time.
Awesome. Well, that's phenomenal. I know I'm excited now about it.
Yeah.
Curt, you're a legend for staying with us this entire length.
Yeah. I got some editing to do to cut this down for YouTube. I think I'm going to make it 3 different videos. This way they're an hour a piece.
Yeah.
Sure it take, but... Yeah.
God knows I can talk forever, so thank
no
you,
problem. We really enjoyed it.
Me invade your ears for that long.
Oh, it was not.
We enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
This was great. Is there one last thing now? Looking over the past 17 years with us, going over, which is kind of a weird thing to do, or to ask somebody to do. It's like, this was 17 years of your life. is there anything that you take away from this?
So it's interesting. I don't think everyone who is involved in the game industry has a passion for gaming. We do it because we love it. To do it as a means of trying to support yourself, to actually, to design a game, to publish a game, to market a game, like all the different things and different hats people wear in this game industry, no one is doing it because it's going to make you rich. People are in here doing it because they absolutely love doing it. They love seeing the faces of people reacting to the things they've created. They love putting themselves out there and seeing people enjoy what they've done, the interactions that bring us all together, the sense of community. All of these things are reasons to want to be in this industry, and they're the things that actually get me up out of bed every day. For 14 of the years that I've been in business, I had a full-time job, a very demanding one, and I did this from 9 to midnight every evening just to keep the company rolling. The past 3 years, I've been able to support my family marginally at it, and I hope that I can continue to grow now that I've got the second brand, and hopefully everything stays on track and I can continue to do what I love. When you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, even though I never stopped working. And so it's a pleasure. And the only thing I regret about this year is I love hanging out and playing with the fans. I love being part of the community, and sadly, we're not able to do that this year, at least face to face. So I'm looking forward to things like Origins Online, Gen Con Online, which won't be ideal, but we'll be in the same play space. We'll still be interacting. We'll still be able to have the same enjoyable time, and I hope people will come and join us for that.
Well, I know I'm on board. That's awesome. We want to give you a big thanks for joining us, going over the whole history of it. I'm more excited for you now than almost any time ever before, and I hope this continues for you, and I hope that your Kickstarter that comes up does an amazing job. So we're going to try our best to promote it on this end. With that being said, we're going to give a quick update on what we're going to be doing for the rest of the week, and then we'll send out.
So Wednesday on our Chits and Giggles topic podcast, once I find the page, we are going to be using underutilized mechanisms as our topic. So
and then our top 8 debate on Friday, which is where we take the top 8 ranked on Board Game Geek for the theme, and we debate them. It's going to be the top 8 AEG games that we played. So we're going to be debating on which one is the empirically based on us best of those. So
scientific study then.
Scientific study, absolutely. And then of course next Friday, as we were saying earlier, or next Monday, as we were saying earlier, we're going to have Justin DeWitt at about 10 a.m. our time, and Jamie Stegmeyer at noon our time.
Yep.
So if you watch us live, do that.
Be here for that. You can find all these videos that are recorded, uploaded on YouTube. With this video, I'm going to try to cut it down to 3, so you'll see Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. When we get to the part that has the Night Cage in it, I am going to link the Kickstarter down below so you'll be able to find it. As well as this will also go up on Podbean. You can find both of those at Everyday Board Games 2020, whether YouTube or Podbean.
And if you want to watch us live and join in on the conversation, just like how Joshua did earlier, you can watch us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. And as always, I've been Daniel.
And Daniel.
And thank you, Curt, for joining us this week.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.